Straight into the podcast, I just want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Declan Kirby GAA Star. Declan Kirby GAA Star Championship Journey. It's a series of GAA team children's books written by primary school teacher and GAA coach Michael Egan. You can check it out in the link in the description down below, of course, as well. Follow the trials and tribulations of Declan Kirby and his team at Smithgreen Gaelic Football Club, recently formed but promising GAA team. The book is now available in Easons and all good bookshops, so check it out in the description down below, and let's get straight into it. Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. I'm delighted to be joined here by former All-Ireland winner himself, Paul Flaherty, and also the What's the Score founder as well. We're here obviously to review all the weekend's hurling action, run through all the big talking points from all the weekend's hurling games. And I suppose first of all, Paul, how's things with yourself? We were chatting off air there, and you're keeping well and enjoying all the busy hurling action at the minute.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron, for having me on there. It's great to be back again. As I was saying off air, it's great to have both the hurling and football there. I know last weekend was just the football, and we had some epic games with even Armagh and Dublin there last weekend. So it was good to get the hurling on the road as well. So it's GA is back, thank God, with lots of crowds and everything. So it's good.
Perfect, yeah. Well, I suppose like no better place to start really with the Wexford and Limerick game. It was obviously Wexford won 11, Limerick 11 points. I suppose like it's a hard one to judge this because we've seen Limerick lose 2 of the first 3 games last year, and they also drew with Tipperary early on. So they went the first 3 games winless. But speaking of Wexford, first of all, like a really good performance from them, and it probably silenced a lot of the doubters in regards to Darragh Egan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great win for Wexford. I think a big factor down there is when you're playing in Chadwick's Wexford Park, like the crowd is nearly on top of you. I was there one time. With Galway, I was a sub, but we didn't actually win that day. But like the crowd down there it's like they're just on the sideline waiting to come on. So it's a huge factor for them. But it's a great win. It'll give them massive boost. I don't think they played much of a sweeper. Obviously, like in the modern game, people just drop back normally, but I don't think they went out and out with a sweeper. You look at like Matthew O'Hanlon there was marking Aaron Glenn, and Aaron Glenn went off at half time. He was back corner back when Matthew O'Hanlon has usually been centre back or full back, kind of switching between himself and Liam Ryan. So it's a big win for Wexford. A lot of positives there with Darragh Egan, and they seem to run a lot of the ball. I know it was only 1-11. It was very kind of tough, physical. As I was saying, like Wexford Park is a lot tighter than Croke Park would be, but it's definitely a huge boost for Darragh Egan and for the Wexford team.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the home crowd and the support and all the rest, and obviously the fans and everything, and especially when that Mikey Dwyer goal goes in, like you could really hear the roar, like you could nearly hear the camera crackle a little bit, like as the ball went in the back of the net. Like, so it was just like, I suppose it is great to see supporters back, like you seen when Kildare were playing Kerry there in Newbridge, and the sort of the difference an atmosphere can make in a game, and that seems to be something very evident here as well, because maybe if that's in an empty stadium, maybe Limerick come back and win that game, but it seemed with the atmosphere and all the rest that Limerick probably struggled to deal with that.
Yeah, like it is kind of a factor when, let's say, the Limerick are the All-Ireland champions, and they might, like, the referee, if there was no one in the stadium, they could be giving the referee kind of more of an earful, and they've got kind of bigger egos, and then the ref might be influenced to kind of like, geez, I better give Aaron Glenn maybe a free here, or I might have to give Jim McBurns or William O'Donoghue, he got a slap in the wrist, I better give him a free. But like with the crowd there behind, obviously, like Limerick were way outnumbered, like that's just the normal. But like Wexford, the crowd were going for every ball, and especially towards the second half when it's really low scoring and physical, everyone's just roaring for a free and everything. So it's a huge factor, and it's great to have. So long may it continue now.
Yeah, and I suppose from a Wexford point of view as well, like I watched them in that Walsh Cup final against the Dubs in Croke Park, and obviously it is pre-season, but they looked a little bit all over the place, and there didn't seem to be much defensive organisation, and didn't have a lot of their best players there, and still obviously have Lee Chin to come back as well. But given they didn't have Lee Chin, and given maybe how poor they did look against the Dubs in Walsh Park, like to turn that around and play the way they did against Limerick, especially defensively as well. Like I thought they really done a good job at shutting Limerick out, and don't remember too many clear-cut goal chances, or the Wexford goalkeeper having to make any saves. So I'd imagine that's a huge positive as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you think you're right. Can't remember any goal chance that Mark Fanning had to kind of, was troubled or anything like that. So that's a huge positive. I think like there were, you've got big lads there that really suited them, like Jack O'Connor and Conor McDonald there, full forward. He seen him in a few of the Walsh Cup games as well. He's really impressive. I know it's early on. Hopefully they're not peaking too soon, but like they're really going well. And like it's with the game in Croke Park against Dublin, they were unlucky, and Dublin came out better on top. But when the All Ireland champions are coming down to your own backyard, like you could see yesterday that Wexford were way hungrier than Limerick. They just had more appetite there. They had a point to prove, I think, to themselves, and I think Darry Egan got the best out of them there. Even though I know they only got 111, but they still were the best team on display. So Limerick had a lot of wides. I think it was 17ish wides there, which was uncharacteristic. So the Wexford definitely spooked them, and they'll gain great confidence from that, and they'll go on. There'll be a challenge for anyone for the rest of the league.
Yeah, is there any reason for Limerick fans to be worried, do you think, or is it too early to hit the panic button?
As you said there, just as you were starting the analysis of this game, you said that Limerick lost 2 or 3 matches in the league last year, and they had a bad start against Tipp Leicester in the championship. So I definitely, it's not as if this has happened before. It's not as if it's something new. This has happened before. So they did have a few. They're kind of newbies, but they've been on the panel for the last while, like Colin Coughlin there from Ballybrown, and then there's Robbie Hanley who was playing, and then you have Pat Ryan and Dave Reedy who have been there for the last few years, but they kind of come on as kind of influential subs, but they started, so I wouldn't definitely be hitting the panic button, and I'm sure the only thing Limerick want is people writing them off, because they'd only love that. So I don't think Limerick fans will be hitting any panic button yet.
Yeah, because it is a hard one to judge. Like you were saying there, I think they lost to Galway and Waterford, I think it was last year at the start of the league. So, I mean, it's a tough one to judge in many ways. And you mentioned obviously some of the maybe fringe players coming in there, like obviously Colin Coughlin and the likes of your Cathal O'Neills as well, coming in there.
Mm.
So Pat Ryan obviously coming back into the team. So when Limerick have their best team available, and Keane Lynch was obviously injured for this game, I think Carl Hayes was an unused substitute as well. So would you still see Limerick as the top dogs in the overall big picture of the All Ireland Senior Hurling Championship when that comes around?
Yeah, you'd have to be honest. You just have to go on what you've seen over the last, let's say, 9 months. Whenever the All Ireland series just finished, so they blew away so many teams. They gave Tipperary such a head start, about 10 points, and Liam Sheedy was clapping them in, and he was it looked like Limerick were going to lose, and then they just came out and totally annihilated them, and just you seen what they did in the All Ireland final then as well. So you can only go on form, and they're not going to play their best team for the league, all the way through. They're going to bring in them fringe players, and that's only going to better their team as well, because you talk about the Robbie Hanleys, Cathal O'Neill there, they're all going to be pushing, even though they lost, but they're still going to be pushing for that spot. They don't want Garrett Hegarty or Keane Lynch coming back and taking their spot or whatever. So I don't see it as really a disadvantage. I think Limerick are the top dogs at the minute, and it's just everyone else has to chase them.
Yeah, it does kind of remind me quite a bit of Dublin maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where you'd see with Dublin throughout the league as well, they probably wouldn't be at their absolute best. They'd be nowhere near their absolute best, and you could tell they were trying out different players, trying out different things, and sort of mixing them in with a lot of All Ireland winners as well, and still able to grind out the odd result here and there. Would you compare Limerick in many ways maybe to that Dublin team, or do you think maybe that's because maybe some people say, look, what Dublin achieved is obviously unparalleled, and maybe it will never be done again, but could you see Limerick maybe emulating that at some point, or at least coming close to it?
I would think they've won 2 or 3 All Irelands now. Like it's hard not to put them in that kind of category because it doesn't seem. I know they lost yesterday, but it doesn't seem like they're going to go off the boil or anything like that. And you see the actual younger players there from the under 20s, like they're really like, I know maybe that Coughlin lad and Cathal O'Neill, like they mightn't have played outstanding yesterday, but they've been seriously good in other games there. Was it the Munster Cup or even for the under 20 Munster for Limerick for the Munster Championship? So like I think Limerick are using the league, and it's probably the best thing to do is to try out new things, because they don't really have, and they don't really, obviously they want to win, but they don't have anything to lose by trying out these new players, because everyone is out to get them, and they'll be peaking for the championship when it comes around in April. So I think they're trying out a few different players, few different things in the league, and some will work and some won't, and they can bring that into the championship. So yeah, I think Limerick are definitely the leaders.
Yeah, and I suppose finishing up on Wexford then, I mean, where would you have Wexford at maybe in terms of the Leinster Championship or the All Ireland picture maybe? Because I think a lot of people probably, when Davy Fitz did leave and Darragh Egan was appointed, and then looking at them in pre-season as well, like they didn't really, I think a lot of people were saying that they've fallen way behind the pecking order. But is like a win like this, can you look into it too much, given Limerick didn't have their best team, given it was the first game, or could this be maybe a sign of things to come for Wexford?
I think it's going to be a sign of things to come, actually, because let's say if you look at the 4 or 5 years Davy Fitz has had under them, they've got massive confidence and serious like strength and conditioning from them 4 or 5 years. And you look like kind of Mikey Dwyer, the kind of Colin Flood, they're all coming in and they're making a difference now. And with this kind of fresh Darragh Egan approach, where there probably won't be as much kind of maybe like two sweepers at a time. It'll be more hurling than kind of running, even though they did a lot of running now with the ball yesterday, but it was fierce windy in Wexford Park. But I actually think Wexford, they've got great players. Like you got Rory O'Connor, Jack O'Connor, Lee Chin, Conor McDonald. They're all serious players. And then you look in the backs and you've got Matthew Hanlon and Liam Ryan, and they're just two massive, you wouldn't like to mark either of them. Like, so they do have they've got some serious players. And Darragh Egan, I'd say, is kind of just looking to see how can he play it to his strengths. And obviously they did yesterday in a kind of a tight pitch. He had all them big lads playing. So I think Wexford will be, the Leinster Championship is kind of, it's fairly wide open, I think, because like you've got Dublin that are obviously doing well. They won the Walsh Cup there, which is great confidence for Matty Kenny and them. And then you've obviously Galway and Kilkenny and Wexford. So it's really, I think it's going to be very competitive Leinster Hurling Championship. And then once you get after that, if Wexford won it or if they got to the final and they're in a quarter, you just don't know after that.
Yeah, like, and I suppose speaking of one of the teams in Leinster, and obviously a county you'd be very familiar with, having played for them before, and it was obviously Galway 422, Offaly 16 points. Obviously, we couldn't watch this on TV or anything like that, and seen some snippets in the Allianz League Sunday or whatever. But what were your thoughts on this result in general? Like, I mean, for Galway, a very commanding result. I mean, when these two met each other in pre-season, it was certainly a lot closer, and it is obviously a huge step up for Offaly. But from a Galway point of view, what were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, like obviously, good win, very high scoring, 34 points there. So, like, if you get 34 points, you surely would win most matches. So, yeah, like I think the good thing that you can see there is that they were hungry for goals. I think they had a lot. Like Evan Nilan missed a penalty, and I think Conor Whelan was soloing in, and he hand passed it to John Fleming, and it just slipped out of his hand. So like they could have had maybe 6 or 7 goals in this game. So that's obviously a great sign, and maybe that's something Henry Shefflin is bringing that might be a bit different to this Galway team. That they're more hungry for goals and more direct, and like because Kilkenny back in when Henry Shefflin was playing, they were renowned for goal scoring, all them Eddie Brennan and himself and DJ Carey and them. So hopefully that is something that he's bringing, and it continues that trend. So a lot of positives there in the Galway game yesterday. They did have a few like newbies again, like you'd Killeen there, wing back, and John Fleming, he has been playing, let's say pre-season, but he got the nod. Then he came on there yesterday. Donal O'Shea came on as well and got a goal. Young lad there from Sawton, Cara. So there's good signs there. They're blooding a lot of players, and Henry Shefflin is seeing, a lot of Galway, let's say, hurling people, are showing a lot of Galway hurling people that he's using a lot of players. So it looks good, all right.
Yeah, like I've seen there as well, like all 6 forwards got on the score sheet as well, all 6 forwards named to start. So, like, where would you stand on Galway? Because there probably is a lot of unknowns really going into them this year. Obviously, we don't know, like, obviously Henry Shefflin as a manager with Ballyhale Shamrocks achieved multiple All-Irelands as a player, probably the most successful player maybe in the history of the game, and probably the best player in the history of the game. But in terms of him managing Galway, I don't think anyone's doubting his ability and his knowledge of the game, but you obviously don't know how it's going to work, because he's obviously a Kilkenny man through and through, and does he know all about a lot of young players coming through the ranks at Galway and your Donal O'Shea's and whatnot? So, like, what's your take, I suppose, on Henry Shefflin coming in there as Galway manager?
It's huge. It's everyone, when it happened, like, everyone was like, this, couldn't really believe it, because there was no speculation. It was all about Davy Fitz, and he was going to be the man that's going to take the job. And then just like within 24 hours, Henry Shefflin got it. So it's been, everyone in Galway is really positive. I haven't heard any negative about it, really. Sure, how could you really? As you said, like, he's a hurling man. He'd know it through and through. He's won titles with Kilkenny and Ballyhale, and he's managed Ballyhale to trophies as well. So there's definitely no negativity anyway with him at the wheel. Probably the thing that you said there, like, he won't know all the players in Galway. It's just impossible. Like, he wouldn't have the knowledge of the how lads, all these younger lads, and he probably know the older lads from maybe playing against them or watching them against Kilkenny the last few years. But definitely with the younger lads, like the Donal O'Shea's, and let's say the Thomas Monaghan's, even he got a good few points yesterday. Like, he, or the Sean Loftus's, maybe he wouldn't know them younger lads. So he's just trying to. I think there is a lot of unknowns with how Galway are going to go, but he's definitely given lots of players a chance to put up their hand and say, do you want to be on this team? Do you want to be on this panel? And he's definitely given everyone a fair crack. And I think it was a good appointment as well to give Dai Burke the captaincy there. He's been number 3, a rock there for the last 7, 8, 10 years there, so and Joe Cooney as well. The two of them won't say much in the dressing room, but they're well respected. So, like, if whenever they do talk, it's kind of, you will listen, like, you won't dishonor them. So I think it's good. I think Henry has been a good appointment for Galway so far.
And where do you stand as well, like, in terms of, I think some people have Galway maybe overrated, some think they're underrated. Like, I've seen an Off the Ball there, they were doing a power rankings, and Galway were in at 9th, and I couldn't quite believe that they were so far down in the pecking order. Like, I really don't see them being that bad. Like, it was only a year ago, really, where people were saying they were the closest to Limerick, So, and obviously they had a dreadful year last year, but sometimes these things happen. So, where do you think Galway are at in terms of that pecking order of, are they in that chasing pack under Limerick? Are they at the top of the pack, the middle of the pack, or what do you think?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be biased, and I'm going to say they're at the top of the pack. In 2019, I think, there maybe it was 18. Like, there was only a point in it there. Joe Canning went for a long range free, and that was kind of the start of Limerick. And, like, we've got a lot of our players are still around. Like, the two Manions are still there. You've, as I said, Joe Cooney, Niall Burke is still there. He played a good bit in the Walsh Cup. Like, and then you've got Conor Whelan and Brian Cannon. They're all still around, and then you've got a lot of young people, a lot of youngsters like Evan Niall. Now, I'd be surprised if he doesn't start and be on the freeze, because he's such a prolific free taker. Like, how could you really not have him on? Then you've got, like, Sean Loftus, who's been played a lot of game time for Galway as well. Like, I think Galway have a lot to offer. Maybe they mightn't be number 2 in the chasing pack. I actually think Cork are I know they maybe got well bet in the All-Ireland final last year, but they would have learned a lot from that. And I think that Galway will be up there. I don't know where I'd actually rank them, but I would definitely wouldn't be ranking them ninth anyway. I'd definitely be putting them up a bit closer to that. So yeah, but I think, and again, like you've got the Henry Shefflin factor as well, like that. It's again something like Wexford. It's something new. These lads have been doing a lot of hurling the last few years, and now they have a different approach with Henry. Again, he definitely will be well respected. Like whatever he says in the dressing room or whatever he demands, the players are going to do it. Like you won't be slouching around when he's the manager. So I think Galway will be up there. I don't know where I'd actually power rank them, but they definitely will be close to the top.
Yeah, and just a word on Offaly then as well, briefly. Like I seen Owen Cahill there with 9 of their 16 points. Like I mean, obviously a huge step up for Mick Fennelly's men, and it's obviously going to be very tough for them. Like when you look at the group that they're in, like I mean, I suppose for Offaly, like is there any, like it's hard to really know what the expectations are, because even seeing, maybe you could have made a case that they could drag Wexford into a relegation battle, but now seeing Wexford have beaten Limerick, like it's probably hard to see them not finishing anywhere but 6th at the end of it.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the reality. And like Michael Fennelly said it after the match last year, he just said we have to be realistic. They have their own targets. It's not, they're not going to be expecting to be Galway or all the other teams there at Kilkenny's and stuff. So they have their own agenda. They'll stick to it. It's tough, like, because I know, let's say from what's the score and talking to, let's say, Offaly clubs and their PROs, and they say like some of the players mightn't go in because they know that, let's say, the results like yesterday are going to happen where they're going to lose by 15, 18 points every time they go out. And it's hard for Michael Fennelly and them to keep the players motivated when you're going into a Division 1 A or B league and you're going to lose most of your matches by 10 plus points, and it's hard to get them motivated then for I know they're stepping up to the Joe McDonough now, so it will be difficult, but it's a difficult ask, and it's hard, it's a hard one to motivate them.
Do you think they even need to maybe even restructure the Hurling League maybe a little bit in some ways, because it probably is, we've seen obviously with Westmeath up there, and you don't want to take anything away from your Westmeaths, your Offaly's, your Laois, because it's great to see them, being in Division 1 and playing the top teams, and obviously these teams have won Division 2, or they've earned the right to be there. But in terms of maybe the structure or how it's laid out, do you think maybe there could be anything they could change there, or would you think that maybe this is just one of them things really when some teams get promoted and relegated?
Yeah, like in fairness, now most of the games are like fairly close. Like besides kind of if you put maybe 10 out of the 12 teams in 1A and 1B, they would all have a fair crack at each other. So like I know, let's say whatever they lost by 18, but let's say Cork and Clare, there was 9 or 10 points in it. Like Laois and Tipperary, there wasn't that much in it either. So it's as close as good a structure I think you're going to get. I think that with the 12 teams, I know it's difficult for like Westmeath and Offaly. Like it's just, I think they just need more work, I suppose, and trying to get up to that standard, and trying to get, as I was saying, like some players just won't play with Offaly, but it's just trying to incentivize them to get your best players to play for your county, in the weaker clubs like Westmeath, Offaly and Laois and stuff. So yeah, that's probably it. And even when you do go and restructure something, there's always it's nearly always like hard to have it 100%. Like the Premier League, there, sure, you could look and say, Man City are playing Brentford and it's 7-0. We need to restructure the Premier League, but they haven't in the last whatever how many years. So I think it's as close. I know whatever yesterday's result isn't great, but I think it's as close as good that you're going to get.
Yeah, it is a fair point, I suppose. It's one of them things as well where it's so hard to, there's always going to be faults somewhere. Like, and even you're seeing in football when they're trying to restructure football, like there's always faults and cracks, and some teams are going to be happy, some teams are going to be unhappy. And if they were to do group stages, well, then that probably wouldn't suit the bigger teams. And it's one of them things really where probably it's probably just up to the counties really to try and compete at that level and compete with the bigger teams.
Yeah, I would say like in the hurling, let's say right, whatever. There's 12 kind of top teams there, and they're kind of the Munster Championship and the Leinster Championship, and it's all very competitive because you've got Galway versus Wexford, or you could have Galway versus Dublin or Kilkenny, and they're all very competitive matches. But the thing in the football is like, besides from Ulster, really, is that when you kind of have Dublin playing Wicklow, or you might have Galway playing Mayo playing Leitrim, or Joe Kerry playing Waterford in the football in Munster, there probably does need to be, there's too many hammerings that there does probably need to be a restructure. Let's say in the league now, let's say probably this was kind of the only real kind of hammering per se, but there's a lot more competitive matches in the hurling, but in the football, there's a lot more kind of big scores going against lesser counties. So I would probably say there would be restructure needed. And again, as you said, it's awful hard to know what's right and what's wrong, but I do think something like the Talton Cup or something does have to be considered.
Yeah, I suppose moving on then, touching on Cork and Clare, we were talking about this game just briefly there, or mentioned that anyways. I mean, big win for Cork. I mean, they've started the league fast in similar fashion to last year, and from looking at this game, this always felt like a game that Cork were always relatively in control of. Like Clare definitely had their bright sparks given their injuries, but a very solid win for the Rebels.
Yeah, like it's kind of surprising there, like that it turned into such a big result, even though like I think Clare got a goal late on to kind of even make the scoreboard even more generous than it actually probably was. So, it was a tight game. Let's say like Páirc Uí Chaoimh is always like it's always very open. It's exactly like Croke Park, like it's very open, a lot of space. Yeah, there's just the ball moves fast off the surface. So it always seems to be high scoring when you're playing in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. It started off, I think it was 8 points each, and it was nip and tuck. Everyone, the two teams were kind of seeing how each other were playing for the first 15. Maybe if there was a water break, it could have maybe they would have Cork wouldn't have ran away in the second quarter there, because like they got 110 without, or maybe 111 I think ish, without reply there, and like that was really the game over. It was awful hard to come back. I think it was 119 to 1-9 at half time. There was a 10-point lead there, and Cork were really in cruise control. So like they had a lot of great performances, like 230, like you Kingston, Dara Fitzgibbon there came up with a good few points, like Shane Barrett. Then you got the new lad there, midfield. I forget his first name, but it's Joyce anyway. He got a few points, and it was very influential there in the middle of the park. And then you had Mark Coleman as well, who got a good few frees, and I think got one or two from play as well. And like I know, let's say on I was just listening to the Alliance League there, but like they were comparing the puck outs, and you could see like Patrick Collins is just like just into the hand or near enough the helmet area when picking out a pass, and that's such a huge asset to the team as well when you're starting off your attack, that your goalie can pin you with a ball 60-70 yards out to start your attack. So Cork definitely have a good few things going for them, and yeah, it was a comfortable win for them in the end.
Yeah, I think that's the most positive thing about Cork, really, isn't it? Like they keep introducing younger players into the team year on year, and we've obviously seen a lot of the underage success with Cork in recent seasons. Obviously, winning the late 2020 All Ireland and then winning the 2021 one as well. So, I mean, Cork are definitely building towards something. Anyway, it's hard to know how far that will get them, but with these young lads coming through, like even Patrick Horgan wasn't even playing yesterday. He wasn't even in the starting 15. Like, so, you've Padraig Power there coming off the bench as well. So, I mean, a whole host of options for Cork.
Yeah, and like it was a few years ago when people were like, "Oh, Cork are finished." Like, they've got no hope for the next whatever 5 or 10 years. But they've really. I was at Cork played. I'm not sure, was it the under 20 2020 or the 2021, but they played Galway in the final, and like the speed of their hurling, and it was on Thurles, like the speed of their hurling and the scores and the big powerful lads that they had, they were really impressive now, I must say. So like Cork hurling is definitely, there's nothing to be kind of disappointed about. They've got lots of young talent coming through, and they're like, they got the All Ireland final last year, didn't go their way, but sometimes they say you have to lose one to win one, and I do think that they're definitely in the mix again this year. So yeah, they've a lot of good talent come through, and even resting kind of Patrick Corgan and other senior lads is definitely a bonus with them. So yeah, it's good to have a lot of options on your team.
Yeah, and in terms of Clare, then I mean, obviously missing Tony Kelly, you obviously had now Aidan McCarthy in there as well, and Mark Rogers scoring 1-5. I mean, he looks like a top class hurler really in that Clare team, and a great find, because I've seen him even at Fitzgibbon Cup level as well. Like, he was looking exceptional. So like with Clare, like they seem to be keep getting wrote off, but at the same time they're still bringing through some of these younger players, and it's one of them things. Like, I think a lot of people were saying, are Clare having the underage success? Obviously not, but at the same time they're finding these players from somewhere. So I mean, it's obviously brilliant coaching from the likes of Brian Lohan and some of the team, or maybe things aren't as bad in Clare as people think.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's hot and cold now, Claire. Like, they've got, like, Shane O'Donnell as well, or John Conlon, or the other lads there as well. They are missing a few, and they probably need most of their team to be competing with the top teams. As you said, like Mark Rogers, great finder. He's been doing a lot of scoring there for UL in the Fitzgibbon Cup. He is a massive find. They had another guy there, left hand on top. I think he's Foodie. I think he got 2 points in play as well. Left hander there, so he's obviously another young lad as well. So they are producing a few players. And fair play to Brian Lohan. Like, I wouldn't be writing them off or anything, but I think when you look at kind of Limerick, Cork, it's like Waterford there as well. They seem pretty strong, and obviously you've got Tipperary under Colin Bonner. I just think Clare are just a tiny bit behind. That's just in Munster, and I'm not even talking about going into. I don't know how they would compare with the Leinster, the county. So I just think they might be at the latter end of the list there, unfortunately. But they do have some good players. They're missed. Like Cathal Malone is, he's been excellent as well, and Diarmuid Ryan there, he's another super hurler as well. So like they're missing, just their few top guns like Aidan McCarthy as well as one of the lads missing. So yeah, I think it's going to be tough for Clare this year if they don't get these lads back.
Yeah, it's a hard one to know with Clare. Like, I actually think if they had Tony Kelly and Aidan McCarthy back, and even with some of the way they played last year at different times, like, I thought it was really exciting, and they play on the front foot. And obviously Tony Kelly, probably one of the best hurlers in the country, if not the best. And like, there was some talk about Peter Duggan coming back into the team. I don't know if he will come back into the team, or he's expected to come back in at some point. Like, if you were to get Tony Kelly back there by the championship, obviously that's not given at this moment in time, and we don't know with Aidan McCarthy, given the fact that he's obviously been suffering from post-concussive symptoms. So, we wish him the best, or we wish him well there. But it's a hard one to know with Clare. Like, I kind of feel like they're one of them teams that could surprise you and come out of nowhere and be dark horses in some ways. But at the same time, if they were to be knocked out of Munster in the round robin, like, that wouldn't be that much of a big surprise either.
That's exactly, you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, they do have good potential, but they need all their players. Like, you need, like, the Aaron Shanahan's need to be flying there. Like, he is a super talent there, full forward, big, strong as an ox. He can get start goal moves, or become a goal scorer there. Like, so he's a super outlet. But I'm not sure how, like, Tony Kelly is a massive loss to them. Like, he's just kind of pulls the strings there wherever, if he's centre forward, midfield, or kind of the corner forward that goes around as the third midfielder, and kind of just has that free role of kind of just influencing the game, whenever he can. So he is a massive loss there. Hopefully he'll be back. I don't know how long his injury is. Peter Duggan as well, like, he's been out of action for about a year or so. Like, to come back into an inter-county scene with the pace and the strength of people now, it's like super hurler. Like I played with him in LIT, he was absolutely like he could do some ridiculous things with the sliotar, like and just come. He's an animal as well. Like once he gets the ball in hand, it's awful hard to stop him. But I just think it's going to be awful hard for him to come back and be an influence like Tony Kelly or the other lads on the team. I just think that it's going to be difficult. So as he's like, Clare do have some super players, super talent, but I think they need a lot of things to go right for them to have an impact in the championship.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think it is one of them things as well. Like, and even you looked at that game against Cork. Like, I mean, obviously that late Tony Kelly chance, if that goes in the back of the net, and they were playing a Dublin team that had a lot of injuries at the time. Who knows? Like maybe they could have went on to potentially get to an All-Ireland final or something like that. Still think Limerick would have beat them comfortably, but yeah, it is a hard one to judge with them. I suppose the next game, moving on to Division 1B, Dublin and Waterford. Dublin 21 points, Waterford 215. Like it seemed like Dublin really had this one. They were comfortable enough for the majority of the game, and I think there's been this thing with Dublin really in the past couple of years where it seems to be in the final quarter where we allow teams to come back into it. I think we've seen a lot of them performances against Kilkenny as well. But what were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I thought it was a good game. No, I would say that if you had to, what would be your kind of one-liner as finish, you'd have to say that kind of Dublin left it behind them. Really, they were the dominant team, and like they've been going well now. I watched a few of their games in the Walsh Cup. Like Donald Burke is playing some serious stuff there. He's unreal from the place balls, and he's very good from play as well. He's really scoring from 45, 65 yards out. So he's been really influential. Like, and then you've got the Chris Crummy, who's just been there for the last how many years. He's always been the powerhouse there, whether he's kind of in the half back line or in the half forward line. He's really influential there. I think Matty Kenny has been doing a good job in them. I think he needed a bit of time to get them up to pace. I actually think they could be a real threat as well. They're kind of the same as Wexford. I think they could be a real threat in this Leinster Championship. I think the Leinster Championship is very hard to call because you've got Kilkenny who are trying out a lot of new talent as well. It's not the same. I know Walter Walsh is playing and all them lads, but it's not the same Kilkenny veterans are the same lads that you would recognise their names. They've got a lot of new blood kind of coming in. So I think the Leinster Championship is kind of wide open there for any team, and I think Dublin could have a massive say in it there. So I think they would have left, in terms of the game yesterday, I think they probably would have left it behind them, but they'll hopefully, from a Dublin perspective, they would have learned a few things and they'll bring it to the next game.
Yeah, like I think as a Dublin fan, really, I think this is probably the most excited I've been about Dublin hurling, really, maybe since 2014, like given obviously how close Dublin had come in 2013. Obviously 2014 didn't work out, but like I mean you're looking at Dublin as well, and they just have a whole host of options now. Like you've got experience in Danny Sutcliffe, but then you have young lads coming in there like Ronan Hayes and Dara Gray as well, and you've probably got maybe the best fullback in the country in Owen O'Donnell. So I mean, like Dublin are looking in a very, very good place. It's probably just one of them things. Like obviously they beat Galway last year, but can they make that step up and win those kind of big games and close out games? Do they have the mentality really to kind of close out those games? I think that's the big thing, really.
Yeah, like no doubt they've got some serious talent there. It's like, let's say they did turn a few heads yesterday or last year, but the real question is, can they be consistent and do it again? I think that's the real challenge there. So like they do have, they've Conor Burke as well, who's been very good there in the middle of the field. Owen O'Donnell has been class, and then you've got like Ronan Hayes, who's been a real outlet there in the full forward line. Then Eamon Dillon came on like with his experience, got a point as well yesterday. He's another, he brings massive experience as well. So I think Dublin are in a really, they've got a wealth of, they'll have a great 15, but they also have lads to come on and make a real impact as well. So I think since maybe Anthony Daly's time, I think this is, if I was a Dublin hurling fan, I'd be very excited for the year ahead. And I think that they'll have a lot to say in the championship when it comes.
Yeah, I suppose who would have known that the optimism will be there more with the hurlers than the footballers, but it's kind of crazy how the tables turn really in the past couple of years. I suppose touching on Waterford, I mean 210 for for Stephen Bennett in there. I mean, that's quite incredible, really, like to finish with that kind of a score, given Waterford finished with 215. Obviously, a lot of them from place balls and penalties and whatnot, but still an extraordinary tally to finish with.
Yeah, and it's a question that I'm curious about, and I didn't know. Like you know, Waterford got the penalty, and the keeper got a black card. And I didn't know the black card. Is the black card just in for the Alliance Hurling League? Is it just introduced this year? Is that a new thing?
I think it was, yeah. Well, I think
Yeah.
last year obviously they had the sin bin.
Sin
They
bin,
obviously
yeah.
brought the sin bin in. I think maybe they've obviously. To be honest, I didn't hear anything about it either. I feel like a lot of the time with these hurling rules and with football rules, it isn't really communicated to the public. Like there's no one really who knows about it, and it's kind of just like, oh well, there's that. Like even in the club championship there with the whole extra time rule with Aidan Brannigan being sent off, it was like. Oh, this rule's always been there. I never knew that. Like it's crazy, really. But it must be obviously a new thing. But
like, I was surprised to see that. But so like that's when I think Stephen Bennett got the second goal. I think that was the penalty there, and the keeper got a black card. So well, it was deserved black card. You know, he had to stop him from you had to do it. But yeah, like Stephen Bennett got 2-10, and then DJ Foran got 3 points, and then they got a point from 2 other lads. From a Waterford point of view, you've only got 4 scorers, and you're really dependent on Bennett there for all of it. So probably not the best start for Waterford. Well, they drew and didn't play well. I suppose that's, if you looked at it that way, they might be like, you know, we didn't play well and we still got a draw. That's not too bad. So I think they'll have a lot to improve on. Like they do have good players as well, like Ozzie Gleeson, and then you've got the Ballygunner effect as well. They'll have 3 or 4 of them lads that have to come back into that team, like, you know, the Mahoney's, Peter Hogan, and these guys. So they're really going well with Ballygunner now at the minute. So Waterford, they're Liam Cahill. I seen him. He was very doing a lot of roaring and shouting on the sideline. That's just his character. That's just what he does. So he will definitely get the best out of them. It was anytime you go to Parnell Park, anyways, it's always difficult. It's kind of the same as Chadwick's Wexford Park. Like it's very tight and closed in with the wall. Like, sometimes if you get a shoulder on the sideline, you could end up in the stand, like, that the wall is so close there. So I think Waterford will have to, I'd say they'll have to, they won't be happy with yesterday. They'll have to bounce back next week in their match.
Yeah, like I do think it was a missed opportunity for Dublin as well. Like I know obviously Dublin had 13 men at one stage, obviously with the black card, and then Keane O'Callaghan getting sent off there as well. But like obviously Waterford are missing Desi Hutchinson, no Peter Hogan, obviously in there as well, like because of Ballygunner's commitments, obviously, or because of their commitments with Ballygunner, who are obviously in the All Ireland Club Hurling Championship final, which is coming up soon. But probably was a missed opportunity for Dublin slightly, given Waterford's, I suppose, missing players, and there probably was an opportunity to win that. So, like, maybe Waterford are happy to come out with a point, and maybe they'll just rebuild from here and focus on the next few games, because I suppose it leaves it open for either team maybe to potentially go on a run and maybe get to a league final.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I think Dublin probably will be a bit more disappointed. At halftime it was 11 points to 1-4, and Waterford were just scraping along there, just with a few frees and stuff like that. So I think that Dublin might be they do again. They are going well. Like they've got a bit of silverware, which will definitely give them confidence. They might be a bit disappointed yesterday, but they won't. I don't think they should. They got 21 points. I don't think they should read too much into it. Like there was a kind of, they did have 13 men, as he said. Like they probably should have won, but then they were probably maybe lucky to get the draw then at the end if they only had 13 players. So and then from a Waterford point of view, they do have a lot of, let's say, Ballygunner, a few things. They don't have their full strength team or squad at the moment. So but I would be worried that they were relying on Stephen Bennett there for all their scores. They need to spread that out a bit more. So I think the two teams, we'll see, first day out, but we'll see how they react now, the two teams, with the games coming up this week.
Yeah, and moving on to Kilkenny and Antrim then. It was Kilkenny 2-15, Antrim 3-9. I mean, this game probably a lot closer than people expected in the end. Just a 3-point win for the Cats in the end. I mean, a brave effort from Antrim by the sounds of it. Anyways, obviously this game wasn't on TV, but I mean, brave from Antrim and for Kilkenny. Like, just looking at some of the players that played that day, like Martin Keown was on the pitch, finished with 2-2, and John Donnelly, Hugh Lawler in there as well. So it was a changed team, but at the same time, Kilkenny still went relatively strong. So I think Antrim, although they didn't win this game, I think they'll be very pleased by their performance here.
Yeah, definitely. Like going from Antrim to Kilkenny, like it's a good trip, like down, and going into Kilkenny, the Nolan Park is always a hard place to go. So I think they'll be happy with how they performed, and the let's say they only lost by 3 points, so I think they'll be happy enough for that. I think as Kilkenny, I was talking to a few PROs and clubs down there, and like they just said, like we're in a bit of a transition. We're trying out a good few lads there, like they've Pádraig Walsh up in the forwards, even though they still have as you said, Hugh Lawler and John Donnelly, but Martin Keown there I think was full forward there for the Walsh Cup as well, against Wexford. So they've got them guys, but they are trying out a good few younger lads, and I know, let's say, like James Bergen is playing. He did feature, let's say, last year, but he's featuring there for I think it's GCU in the Fitzgibbon as well, and he's putting in some good performances. So they are going with a younger kind of an outlook, and they're trying to balance in, I suppose, Killian Buckley and Walter Walsh and these guys as well. So it's hard to know with Kilkenny. I think they're even though it's Brian Cody's 24th year, I think he is blended in a few new lads. So it's hard to know where Kilkenny are. We'll see after a few more games, but like they were kind of always expected to beat Antrim, but we didn't probably think it was going to be a 3-point win. Probably thought it might be a bit bigger.
Yeah, and I suppose looking at Antrim as well, like, I mean, last year very competitive in the league, obviously in the championship, in the Leinster Championship, it didn't really work out for them, losing to both Dublin and Laois, and obviously a massive disappointment for them. But they are gaining more and more experience of playing in these games, playing the likes of your Kilkennys and your Dublins and whatnot, and they certainly are building. So I mean, could you see Antrim staying up, do you think, in Division 1, or what do you think might happen with them?
Yeah, like if you compare that to the kind of the Galway versus Offaly, like and we're talking about restructuring. If you said, Antrim, like, we don't want to restructure. We're playing Kilkenny and we're giving them good games. Like, don't break what's not broken, is what they say. So, I think, Antrim definitely will be, like, they do have a good. There's a lot of talent there, like with Kieran Clark, and you've obviously Neil McManus has been there the last while, and Joe Maskey and Owen Campbell. James McNaughton is great. I've seen him playing a few club matches as well. He's been fantastic. So they love their hurling up there. Like, it's very traditional. So I think that Antrim, if they had to come down between Antrim and Offaly, I think it'd obviously be a very tight game, but I'd say Antrim probably would stay up, and I think that probably is one of their goals, is to kind of just stay in the Division 1 league. So I think that they probably will. They've got good players there, so I think they will.
And speaking of close games, I mean, Laois and Tipperary was a relatively close game in the end. I mean, obviously Tipperary winning it by 4 points, but I mean, Laois giving a good display again. And like, Laois are one of them teams that are hard to know, really, because there's times you'll see them, when they played Wexford in Leinster last year, they were absolutely hammered and they were beaten out the gate. But then, they give a really good display beating Antrim, and they give a really good display against Waterford. So, I mean, it does seem like the talent in Laois is there to compete with some of these teams. Obviously, it is a much changed Tipperary side, and obviously new manager coming in. They're not probably at the same level they were at a couple of years ago just yet. But in terms of Laois, though, like, they can be proud of their performance here.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. Only 4 points in it. They definitely give a good account of themselves. Like, I was watching the clock Ballycolin there. Like, they went very far in the Leinster Club Senior Hurling, and you've got Picky Maher there, who was doing a lot of scoring in the game yesterday between Laois and Tipperary. He was on the freeze and got a good few from play as well. So, like, they definitely love their hurling, and obviously you've got Cheddar Plunkett there, who will be drilled, is just a real hurling fanatic as well. So he is definitely a good. Everyone would respect him in Laois as well. So Laois did give a good account of themselves, and it's good to see that they're not. Hopefully we won't jinx them now and they get hammered in a good in 3 or 4 other league matches, but they are shown a good account of themselves. And with Eddie Brennan and everything a few years back, they were really competitive. So it's good to see that Laois are keep coming, and they don't. We hopefully they won't fade away, and they'll stay competitive with all the power ranking teams.
Yeah, and obviously this game wasn't on TV, but just from looking at match reports and whatnot, like obviously Paddy Purcell was sent off on the 45th minute, and from what I read and from what I heard anyway, it didn't slow them down too much in terms of momentum. Like they got a goal 2 minutes later and kept on kicking away. So even being down to 14 men, like probably shows that there's and they're still able to put it up to Tipperary, I suppose, is quite positive. Like touching on Tipperary, like where would you have them kind of going into this year? They're another, like a lot of teams really, like new manager, maybe new system, new way of playing, and obviously players who've had to retire due to injuries and players not there, opting out, all the rest. Like what would be your thoughts on Tipperary at the minute?
Yeah, I'd actually love to see kind of them to kind of give a good report or give a good analysis, because I actually don't know much about them at the moment. Obviously you'll have Jason Ford and you'll have the stalwarts that have been there the last few years. Like Paddy Maher is a big loss. Like just couldn't, like how much of a warrior has he been for the last 10 years for Tipp and for Thurles Sarsfield? Like he'll probably, I think he's retired from club as well. So Tipperary, like with Cullen Bonner, new manager as well, like with Dara Egan and Henry Shefflin, it's kind of hard to know how Tipperary will go this year, but they do have a lot of young talent as well. Like we've seen Robbie Byrne there, and there's a few other new youngsters as well coming along nicely. So it'd be hard to know how Tipp will be this year, but I definitely wouldn't be ruling them out now. I like to see them to kind of see what they're up to this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and you had Jason Ford with 10 points there, and Jake Morris with 3 points as well. So, it is still probably the same players, I suppose, that are chipping away with the points for Tipperary at the minute. I'll definitely be interested to keep an eye on them over the next couple of weeks. I'll just read out some results from Division 2A. Like you'd Westmeath 315, Kerry 115, Down 210, Carlow 112, and Kildare 15 points, Meath 18 points. So some surprise results there anyways with Down and Meath picking up victories. But I suppose before we finish up, obviously the What's the Score app, I mean, obviously you're the man behind that, so obviously that's an app that obviously people can follow and download to keep track of the games and all the rest. So where can people find it, or find your Instagram or whatever if people are looking for it?
Yeah, so like if you want to go onto your app store, whether you're Android or iPhone, you can just go and type in What's the Score, SCOR there, just in case some people put in SCORE and they can't find it. So yeah, we've all the Alliance, the Alliance Hurling from 1A to 1B, and all the Alliance football leagues from 1 to Division 4 there. So it's been pretty hectic now the first 2 weeks. A lot of traffic coming through. So yeah, we've been getting great feedback. So if you want to keep up with all the live scores of the weekend, just you can download What's the Score on your app store there. And yeah, thanks, Mitch.
Perfect, Paul. Well, I appreciate you jumping on anyways. And yeah, anyone who tuned into the live stream around like that, to be a football show out a little bit later with John McMahon of the JMac podcast. So stay tuned for that as well. And yeah, cheers, Paul, for coming on. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Aaron. Thanks a million.